Hello and Happy New Year! It always feels like Christmas when a new Mega Drive game arrives at the door, but this year it actually came around Christmas, just after in fact, so that was nice. It also meant that I had a decent amount of free time to put into this game over the last week or so. This is Life on Mars Genesis, developed by Kai Magazine Software, and they very kindly sent over a copy to review. You may remember their previous Mega Drive game that I reviewed, Metal Dragon, which was a port of an MSX game. The original Life on Mars also originated on the MSX, and Kai Magazine Software released that way back in 2016, so this game is actually 7 years old. They've since released a remake version on Steam with updated graphics, and now this Mega Drive version called Life on Mars Genesis. Usually I do an on-camera intro for these videos, but I'm currently rather ill, so you'll have to live without my lovely face. But I will of course show you the packaging. I also apologise if my voice is a bit croaky. The box that they sent me is the original Mega Drive style, which is always my preferred design. There are 3 other styles available when you order: a blue spine version, Genesis version and Japanese Mega Drive design. The spine looks decent and the rear, but the highlight is definitely that front cover design, which is evocative of 80s sci-fi films. The included manual or technical operations manual is a slim design and tells you everything you need to know about the game's mechanics and its levels. It's well printed with good colour and quality paper, does the job. The cart looks okay, albeit that knockoff cart design shell, but I suppose that's what's readily available. Also included are these prints depicting some art from both the cover and the game's intro. Just before we get into the game, I'll just explain the options. It's difficulty, and that's it. Normal, hard or masochistic. The difficulty selected only affects how much damage enemies do and how effective healing cells are. So on to the game. As always, this was recorded on an original Mega Drive via an OSSC. The intro lets us in on what is actually a pretty decent story. Set in 2048, you arrive on Mars as part of a search and rescue mission, as a research base on Mars has gone radio silent. Upon arrival, you discover that the base's robot defences have been reprogrammed to attack any living organism on site, and the base is also overrun by mutated people and other life. The story is quite well done for a Mega Drive indie game, and the plot progresses as you advance through the game. There are a couple of plot twists along the way, so all may not be as it first seems. I mean, it's not winning any Oscars, but it's nice having a story in a game like this that I don't ignore or find completely disinteresting. Life on Mars Genesis is what I suppose one could call an exploration run and gun platformer. It's a Metroidvania style game, so you'll find areas which are inaccessible to you at first that only open up when you've gained a specific item or upgrade. You know the score. There are several ways to obtain these upgrades, but I'll come back to that shortly. Controls are A to fire, B to jump and C to fire your secondary weapon. Press start to switch between your secondary weaponry. Holding start brings up an info screen and map, or you can press X if using a 6-button controller. Firing your weapon uses some of your energy meter at the top left. Your primary weapon is a plasma rifle, your basic shot, and you can fire horizontally, vertically upwards and diagonally. Your secondary shots, which we'll come to in a bit, are more powerful, but as a result use significantly more energy. Once your energy meter depletes, you'll need to wait a short time for it to recharge. You enter the base via the first area, which is the Air Purification Centre. This is quite brief at first, but eases you into the game's mechanics quite well. You will come back here later, as some other areas open up once you upgrade. Once through this area, you'll reach this lift shaft. This is basically the main hub, from which you can access all the game's 6 areas found across 3 floors. The other areas are a hydroponics farm, command centre, research labs, mines and natural caves. You'll find these terminals in the lift shaft, as well as others dotted around the levels. These are save points. I'd recommend to save as often as possible, as if you die you'll be restored to your last save. This is quite comforting, as you're never really set back that far if you do die. Navigating your way through the game is for the most part simple, as you're guided by the story. This usually involves your character Sam communicating with his ship in orbit, and the story tells you which area to explore next. What you're not told is when to revisit areas to find hidden areas. You'll have to do that yourself. Enemies are, as I mentioned, either robots or some sort of mutant. There are zombie-like infected humans, mutated plant life and other creatures. A defeated enemy will drop an energy cell which come in two sizes. These small ones restore 2 points of health and these large ones 5. On hard mode, the smaller ones only restore a single point of health, and in masochistic mode they restore none. I played through the game on normal. In addition to restoring health, these energy cells also act as a sort of currency with which you can purchase upgrades at these upgrade terminals. Each terminal has one of 4 specific upgrades, so they're either energy, which recharges your energy meter quicker, plasma rifle, which increases the power of your standard shot, or upgrades to your secondary weapons, grenade and flame. Grenade is a grenade launcher which fires powerful grenades at enemies, and flame is a flamethrower. I found the grenades very useful indeed, especially against bosses. The flamethrower is needed to access certain areas as it can burn through vegetation, but apart from that I found it quite useless, aside from one boss that was particularly vulnerable to fire damage. Each upgrade you buy increases the effectiveness by 10%, with each progressive upgrade costing slightly more. I found it essential at times to farm for energy cells so I could upgrade my attributes, especially the grenades. This means revisiting areas and killing enemies to collect energy cells, as well as energy cells found lying around. Once you leave an area, all the enemies reset, so you can come back to the same area multiple times to harvest these cells. If you do die and reset to your last save point, you'll retain any energy cells gained. But there are other ways to upgrade outside of these terminals by collecting these round power-ups. These come in 2 flavours, suit upgrades and plasma rifle upgrades. The suit upgrades are upgrades to your shield and energy, which increase the capacity of your health bar and energy meter respectively, which you can see at the top left there. There are also 2 skills to add to your suit, run and jump boost. Run lets you run by double tapping, which is handy just for getting about quicker to be honest, and jump boost is a double jump. Rifle upgrades are the grenade launcher and flamethrower secondary weapons. To switch between these you press start and there's an icon next to your shield meter to indicate which is currently selected. There's also an auto fire upgrade, but I found that I didn't really use this much as it depletes your energy meter very quickly. These upgrades are what adds the Metroidvania mechanics to the game, as they each open up previously inaccessible areas. Double jump lets you access higher platforms, and sometimes it's even necessary to combine the run and jump boost upgrades for really high areas. As I mentioned, the flamethrower destroys vegetation blocking your path, and the grenade launcher can destroy metal hatches. Once you obtain these upgrades, make sure you retrace your steps in order to collect all the available upgrades hidden away, and you'll also find some areas rich with valuable energy cells. None of these areas are really hidden, they're there in plain sight. All you have to do is find them and work out what you need to get to them. Actually, at one point I did find what I thought was a secret passage where I entered a wall, but it didn't seem to go anywhere no matter how many times I tried. You can keep track of all your skills by visiting the pause menu and map, which tells you the level of all your upgrades at the time. I found the bosses quite hard at times, and some of them didn't seem to have any possible strategy. Normally you can work out a boss's attack patterns and so on and crack it after a few tries, but with some of them I could only use brute force. This meant that a couple of bosses were just impossible to beat until I'd upgraded enough, so in those instances I'd just backtrack to farm some energy cells, upgrade my attributes a bit and then come back to beat the boss. It works, but I would have preferred the bosses to have a strategic weakness. Maybe they did and I just didn't find them. The other enemies all have predictable attack patterns which can be dealt with accordingly, although I do wish the game had more enemy types as they do get a bit samey after a while. I really like the graphics, which are faithful to 16-bit era games of this ilk. The levels can be a bit monotone at points, but the backgrounds are arguably the star of the show, with some nice detail and parallax scrolling. The music is interesting. It's not music you'd ever remember or find yourself humming, instead opting for sombre, almost sinister dirges, but it works and fits the theme of the game quite well, I think. The sound effects are decent, with some good speech thrown in the mix. I'll leave some gameplay at the end so you can hear it in action without me talking over it, and I may also upload my full playthrough. The whole game, from the atmosphere to the plot, has an 80s sci-fi feel to it. The game on the whole has quite a chilled pace, which I like, apart from the finale, which is a race against time. You have 7 minutes to escape the bowels of the Mars base, and I found this section to be quite exhilarating. It added a tenseness and sense of urgency that was lacking in the rest of the game, so I would have loved a couple more of these sections dotted throughout the game. If I had another gripe, it would be that the ending was far too brief. With such a fleshed out introduction and progressive story, it would have been nice to have a meatier ending, but hey ho, it does wrap up the story. The whole game took me about 5 hours to complete, including a lot of dying and plenty of energy cell farming. Now I know what I'm doing, I think I could probably reduce this by a couple of hours in my next playthrough. I loved life on Mars and found that it was a really enjoyable experience on the Mega Drive. We've not seen an indie game like this on the console before, so I found it quite refreshing. It does have some minor flaws, but nothing that ruined what was a really fun playthrough, and I'll definitely be revisiting this one. If you want to buy a copy, there's a link below in the description, and thanks again to Kai Magazine Software for sending it over. It's great seeing the Mega Drive get such interesting new games in 2022, and long may that continue. Let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Are you going to buy a copy? Thanks for watching.